The second transformation challenge for middle-income country is geographic. Urbanization has taken off in recent years in almost every middle-income countries. In Indonesia, between 1995 and 2005, the urban population grew 55%, and there are now multiple urban centers. In China, urban population is foreseen to increase from about 1/2 now to 2/3 by 2030. This is by the amount of more than one Tokyo a year. Urbanization brings with its own challenge. Again, I'm using China. The Chinese social and economic inequality largely coming from rural-urban differences, especially because of difference in access of job, services, as well as social protection. Middle-income countries must act to reverse this inequality. To further exploit, if not just cope with urbanization, middle-income countries need to focus on investing in urban infrastructure, including road, water, and sanitation, electricity, and city must be made livable. And actually, I visited Chicago today, and I heard there are quite a lot of new space. You have the, what you call it, Millennium Park now, which is actually is very nice to be presented as an example. I don't know the cost of building that park. Could be expensive, but that creates the city to become livable. And many countries, developing countries, now really have to focus as a policymaker to design their cities to become livable. In Indonesia, 80% of 10 million poor urbanites has actually lacked access to piped water. So even in a very basic infrastructure access is not there. You can see this as a challenge of middle-income country, but I'm sure for many of this business here in Chicago, that sounds like an opportunity. A lot can be offered. Now, the third transition is the social transition, in which middle-income countries experience what you call it a growing middle class. A middle class can help middle-income countries by providing a market for sophisticated goods. In Brazil, China, and Indonesia, this has actually provided an opportunity for domestic industry to then develop. It can also attract foreign direct investment. Most recently, the Japanese foreign direct investment come to Indonesia is actually aimed to seeking the market opportunity because of a very fast-growing middle class. A new middle class can also spur democracy, spending on social services, market liberalization, and better governance. But middle class can also hinder for middle-income country growth, especially through what I call it a secession of the successful. This is when new middle class link with the upper class and isolate themselves from the poor. If they rely on private utilities, schools, and hospitals instead of demanding for the public facility, they stop identifying with the state and lose interest in reform or good governance. Many of the middle class in many middle-income countries, I found that they want to have their own private school, their own private hospital. So they're becoming not linked with what you call it public services. An additional challenge to be handled as part of the social transition is sometimes increased inequality and increased vulnerability of people to external shock. And you can see a lot of external shock. whether coming from food, energy, or natural disaster. In fact, this morning in Indonesia, we have another earthquake in the same place of tsunami that is in Aceh. This has meant a lingering class of poor and growing class of near poor who are vulnerable to economic shock or natural disasters. And 70% of the world's poor actually still live in what you call it middle-income countries. So although they look so rosy and stealing a lot of headline news, middle-income countries are actually facing with this very challenging task. What this means is that there will be a continued or even more critical imperative for social agenda in all middle-income countries. That's including BRICS. For the good of this population and for social stability, a social program needs to be addressed to help those people to get economic opportunity while deliver services to them, including important social protection program. Investing in people and institutions is needed to address this transformation, that is economic, geographic, and social transformation. Middle-income countries must address issues that hinder educational achievement. For most middle-income countries, an emerging constraint to grow is actually the skill gap. For the economy to grow into high value-added sectors, there is need for better skilled workers whose skill actually match those needs by the market. These countries must increase their focus on secondary, tertiary, as well as vocational education for a more sophisticated job market. I can see also in the Middle East and North Africa with this Arab Spring, the most very actually strongest message coming from there is actually job creation, especially for the youth. They are not educated. They are educated, but their skill is mismatched with the market. So in many countries, also including Indonesia, the issue is not just increasing the access to education, but ensuring access to a high-quality education that is relevant to the need of the economy.